All right, so today we're talking about the Central Discovery Index, and we're coming to the last few classes in the session. So next week we'll talk about external resources if you're interested in learning how to load external resources like a DSpace repository or another external repository into Primo V for discovery and Primo, or yeah, load it into Alma for discovery and Primo V is what I mean to say. Also, we'll go through like libguides. Libguides is another one that you could be adding as well. So we'll talk about that and normalizing the data. And then we have a dedupe and Ferber session, and then finally an introduction to Primo Analytics as the last course. So today, CDI, and today what we're going to talk about is we're going to review, I know most of you or many of you have attended other courses and we've talked about what CDI is, but just reviewing all the pieces so that we're clear on it when we start talking about the refinements that you have, so that we're clear on which pieces of CDI and your activations and all of that you are affecting when you make choices in the activation menu when you have those CDI options. We'll talk about how availability is determined. So when you get that available online sticker, and then what can you do to control the availability, how it's presented in your Primo V environment. We'll talk also about the fully flexible versus the easy active models. Likely there's a mix of folks on the call. Some of you might be using fully flexible and some of you might be using easy active. And I know from my own experience of searching the CKC that it's not always super easy to understand which articles apply to you and the documentation. So maybe some hints as to whether or not you're looking at something that's fully flexible or easy active, whether or not it applies to you and what the differences are. Um, Quickly looking at the CDI attributes, and then some common troubleshooting scenarios that you might see. So starting with what is a CDI? So we've talked about this before, but ultimately you have your e-resources configured so that your end users can access them. And sometimes we talk about discovery and delivery as these two separate pieces, especially when we're talking about CDI, sort of like a conceptual model to understand the difference between what CDI is doing versus what's coming from Alma and what, your choices are affecting in both places. So if there's the difference between discovery and delivery, and we're talking today exclusively about your remote central discovery index records. So in terms of discovery, we're talking about the citations that are coming from CDI, which of course is that repository that has lots and lots of citations, closer to 4.5, trending up, I think, towards 5 billion at this point, as we get, more citations constantly from providers and aggregators and folks that work with ProQuest and Ex Libris. Um, this is accessible in both of Ex Libris's discovery systems, and by that I mean Primo V and also the other ProQuest discovery platform, Summon. I don't know if anybody here is on Summon and interested in Primo V or whichever, but both of those systems now search CDI, which is why the index got significantly bigger because the indexes that were searched separately are now combined. And most resources, as we'll see, are free to search, regardless of your activation status, whether or not you actually own it in Alma. And of course, we know that there are some abstracting and indexing databases that are not free to search. But that's getting the records into discovery to actually find the citations, find the book chapters, find the books, whatever you're looking for. In terms of delivery, the linking to content is often coming from Alma. As we'll see, that's not always true. Sometimes the link is coming from the CDI record itself. But for the most part, it's useful to think about the linking coming from your activations in Alma. And in terms of what's available in your filtered search, that's coming from what you truly have full text access to, what you've ordered, what you've activated. When you're finding things, when you're actually going through the delivery process, you're clicking on the link, you're getting to the actual, um, you know, research or whatever it is, you're finding the full text content in its own database or repository. So you're reaching out to Gale or EBSCO or wherever is storing that full text access or that citation or whatever it is that you're finding. And so we have the two models of delivery, which we'll talk about how they differ. The direct linking, so the link is in the CDI citation itself, coming from maybe an 856 or similar, that's providing direct access from the CDI collection to the content. Or you might be using the link resolver that's using the linking parameters and the local information, the coverage statements, and that sort of thing that you may have entered into Alma. Um, and using that information. And then, of course, you may need to authenticate or authorize to access that material. If it's proxied, if it's subscription content, likely it's limited to those who can access it via some sort of login. So how does it work? So first we add the content into CDI. So we work with aggregators and publishers and other subscription and open access resource repositories to get the citation data on an ongoing basis. And again, you can take a look at the CDI collections list to see what ongoing basis it is, which can be different for different providers. Often I think it's weekly that they provide content to Ex Libris. But so on a weekly basis, let's say we are updating that. And then your patrons are searching in Primo or potentially Summon. If they're searching the Central Discovery Index, they're searching, potentially just your CDI records, depending on how you have it set up. Often they're searching CDI and your local records together. And then you get your results. And then you can see that most of these are available online. This one's available online. So we're seeing our filtered results coming back based on what we've activated. And then we get our full text links. So the full text link is actually bringing us to the full text of the material. So we're actually getting to the resource itself. And the reason that we're seeing these full text links here is because we are, again, utilizing the data that's coming from Alma. We've activated ProQuest Central, and the availability statement for this collection matches the article that we wanted to look at, and that's why we're able to reach out to it. So these are being pulled from what we have active in Alma. So just to remember too, because we are going to be talking about the different models and what you can change between the two, we're just going to go through just another quick search. Let's do the same one that was in the little video that played. Oh, that's not what I want to do. I want to search in articles. And I think I've been logged out. So let me just log back in so that bar goes away. Oh, there we go. So again, most sites have it set up that we're only seeing what we have full text access to when we do an initial search. Again, you do have control over that. If you wanted this to be the expanded search to include things that you don't have full text access to by default, you could do that. But most sites have, just what you have available online. It's a good user experience, I think. And then, we can find our material here. And then also just to note, if you're looking at, for example, this record here, when I hover over it, you'll see at the very bottom of the screen, it's showing the actual URL. And we see that it's using the U resolver. So in this case, and also because there's coverage statement here coming from Alma, we can be almost certain that this is using the link resolver in this case to deliver access to our users. So if you were, searching, primarily in Primo V, you're not able to check something in Alma, or you don't have time or something, and you wanted to know, is this a link in record, or is this using my link resolver? Maybe you're trying to troubleshoot a problem. You can kind of hover over and see where the link is going, and that can give you some idea of what kind of collection it is. Another thing you can do, I don't know if we've talked about the and display CTO equals true option, but if you wanted to take a look at more information on the services on this particular page, you could put at the very end of a full record, oops, we get the and in there. and display CTO, uppercase CTO equals true. You could enter that. And actually, I think this example was acting weird. So let's hope. Okay, so it did load. And once you refresh the URL, you have this display CTO box. And then you can open this record. And it always wants me to translate it to Maltese. I don't know why. Um, and if you look at the get full text here, so there's a lot of things you can do with the CTO record, but if you just wanted to check what's being used in terms of how your how your services are being pulled in. You can see here you have your package name and you have your portfolio ID and you have your availability statement listed here. And then you also see, so we're right, this is using the link resolver and we see that this is the parser parameters that's being used. So we can kind of use that to troubleshoot. And this can be really useful for troubleshooting. And also, you know, if you want to find that portfolio, you can just grab that PID and then search for that in Alma in the portfolio search. So there's useful information in here for sure. But just in terms of knowing kind of what kind of linking you're using, you can also use it for that. And I saw there were some questions about what does CTO stand for, and I believe it stands for context object. Milan can correct me if I'm wrong. Um, okay, so going back here. And let's see, I think that's all I wanted to show here for now. Let's go to the next sort of mini topic. So talking about how that availability is actually determined. So talking about the actual available online. So we switched back and forth between the filtered search and the expanded search. And so now we're talking about how are we getting that actual available online? How does Alma and Primo V know which ones to put that stamp on? So when we saw our search results, all of the search results are coming from collections that are active for search in CDI. And this is true if you are on a fully flexible model or an easy active model. So what you're searching for in the expanded search and what you're searching for in the filtered search is all based on what's active for search in CDI. You have different choices, or for easy active, not very many choices in terms of what's available in your expanded search. So when you don't have full text access, but if you do have full text access, so if you activate it in Alma, it's active and you're able to get to the full text, you have your portfolios active and all of that. That is what is the matching between your Alma collections and the CDI is what is creating the available online flag. And I just want to show this screenshot here where we're talking about the discovery piece. So what citations can we find both in the filtered and the expanded search? This is particular, this active for search and this thing up here with the circle with the eye. This is specific to the fully flexible model, and we'll see them side by side in a little bit. But the active for search, especially in the expanded search, with a specific and like discrete option here that's specific to the one type of model. So you wouldn't necessarily see that if you were easy active, and hopefully that will make sense in a little bit. But in terms of the delivery piece, again, what we're seeing here in terms of the links that display, these correspond to the full text services that you have available in Alma. So this collection is active, this service is active, and it's feeding these options for the link resolver to bring us to the full text here. So this is the delivery piece. So that's kind of the discovery is finding the citation, and then the delivery piece is pulling in all of the options you have from Alma in terms of how can we actually get to the full text. And the availability status it depends basically how the matching works based on what kind of collection you have activated in Alma. So here we have this particular portfolio. So we know that this is coming from a collection that probably has like a service and it has portfolios in the collection. and it's available online. So we're seeing the available online, and we'll see the services when we click into this because this journal, I don't know how you say it, Flows One, we have access to this particular portfolio from, some package, maybe one, maybe multiple, and it's checking the coverage statement, and we can get to this particular article from one of our collections that we have. So if we have a collection that has portfolios, like a full text or a selective full text package or aggregators and that sort of thing, the publishing includes the identifiers and coverage. Um, so in this case, we are using the metadata for the portfolio, most likely, and the coverage statements, and that's how we're making the match between what we have in Alma and this particular article and this particular this particular issue of this journal. And CDI matches the relevant content and marks it as available online. For your database types, so your database types without collections, without the services in Alma, without relying on the services. So most likely this is your abstracting and indexing databases that you have active. This is just taking the DB ID. So it's taking like what is the, well, not this one, but what is the collection's ID in Alma in the CDI collection, and then all of that content in the CDI collection, the corresponding collection in CDI is activated. So you don't have portfolios, so we're not looking at identifiers or coverage statements. Basically, if you have the database active, all of the content in CDI for that database, the corresponding CDI collection will be active. So that is the available online in terms of your database material. So what actually does the work? Coming from your Alma, it's this publishing job under resources, publishing profiles, publish electronic records to CDI. It should be active and it should be scheduled for some time. You likely don't have much control over the scheduling. It's, the cloud environment is deciding when it's most optimal to run. And then it should be running every day, and it should be pulling all of your electronic holdings automatically into your unique institutional holdings file so that that matching is constantly ongoing. The indexing and the matching is constantly ongoing so that we get the most accurate information within that, 48 to 72 hour period. So I think also, um, I might be speaking out of turn, I'm not sure, but I do know for some folks who are being migrated to CDI from PCI, the former Primo Central Index model, for a while, there is a time when you're publishing both to Central Discovery Index and Primo Central Index, and that's expected. And then eventually there's some switch that's made, and then you're only publishing to Central Discovery Index. But if you do go into your publishing profiles and you see the PCI one that's still there, there might be a valid reason for that, at least at this point for your environment. So taking a look, so we saw at how availability is determined, but like what can you do at your institution to control availability? So you do have some options. So the first option, of course, is to make adjustments to the service activation. So is your service available or is your service not available? If you're deactivating your service, if you're deactivating the service that serves your portfolios in your collection, you would expect once you do that for the full text link to not appear anymore. So basically, you're getting rid of that full text delivery if it's using the Alma link resolver, and it won't show in the record. It doesn't mean that as soon as you deactivate this, that you're not going to see the CDI records, because we're waiting also always for that publishing job. We're waiting for the availability statements always to be updated if we've made some activation or deactivation. So it's not immediate. But you would always, like if you didn't have access, even if it said available online, you click into that record, the actual full text availability link would be gone because you've turned it off in Alma. So although the availability statement is catching up, the actual delivery piece is kind of like that, that quick indexing piece. Also, I mean, deactivating, just to note, not necessarily to do with CDI, but deactivating the service is not going also to suppress the bibliographic records from the local records from your catalog. So if it's truly the case that you're getting rid of this, or you no longer subscribe to this collection, there might be more work to do to make sure that people aren't finding dead links or things like that. So there is also this setting that likely you've seen, do not show as full text available in CDI, even if active in Alma. So basically, you're saying, I'm going to use my local bibs. My local bibs are going to be published to Primo V, but I'm not going to turn on the corresponding CDI collection for this Alma collection. So I'm suppressing, like, the article level indexing, the book chapter level indexing, basically the corresponding CDI collection that by default would get activated. I'm saying don't activate that. So we would not then see that indexing. And if you found the portfolio from your local bib, or if you had another citation that would bring this portfolio that, contains this portfolio, you would still see the full text link because we still have the service active. So that would still appear. So if you found this in some other way, it's contained in another collection, you would still be pulling in that full text link, but it wouldn't have its own CDI records appearing. So you're not showing those. And why might you use this option? So there's two basic reasons, at least that I know of, use cases for using this. One is if you are activating a lot of open access content and you don't want those results to overwhelm your subscription content, you might suppress the CDI collection so that you're not getting all, sometimes if you look at the open access collections in CDI, they're like huge. They're like, 48 million citations contained in them or whatever. Maybe you don't want to turn that CDI collection on. You want to keep discovery through your subscription CDI content. They can still find these portfolios in the local, through the local bibs. They can still get full text access if you have that portfolio contained in another collection. They're still retaining the full text link, but we're not having all of those records appear in the search, if that makes sense. The other option, the other reason why you might use this is to stop duplication in ebook collections, and we'll talk specifically about that in a few seconds. The other option you have here, and this only appears for collections that are link in record. So they're using the link in the CDI record rather than using the Alma link resolver. You'll see this option for CDI only full text activation. And that's kind of, in a way, the opposite of the other setting that we just saw. So we're saying suppress our local bibs. We're not going to use the local bibs for discovery. We're only going to use the CDI collection. And in this particular scenario, the collection is actually inactive. And we can still get CDI results because we're not relying on the collection in Alma. We're not relying on its service. We're not relying on the information in the collection, the information in the service, the linking parameters. We're using the link only in the record from CDI, so we can still have CDI only full text activation here and mark those as available online, even if the collection is inactive. And again, this only appears for link and record because that's the only type of collection, that CDI collection, that this will work for. And this, at least as far as I know, the reason you might use this, besides, I guess, wanting to suppress the local bibs for whatever reason, is also to do with ebook duplication. So I'll talk about that in a second. The other option you have is when you're activating the collection or when you're looking at the CDI settings, you have this one. We subscribe to only some titles in this collection, yes or no. So basically, if you have a selective package, you would want to say, yes, we subscribe to only some titles in this collection. And this is the flag for the matching job. It's saying, do I need to look in each portfolio in this collection and look at its, its coverage dates and all of that? Do I need to look at the identifiers in each portfolio to determine whether or not I can mark this article or that article as available online? Or does this institution subscribe to every single portfolio in this collection with no exception, so I can mark all of those online without going through the individual matching process. So if it's an aggregator, you can put this to no. I do think that this speeds up the matching process because it doesn't need to go through each individual portfolio. So if you truly subscribe to everything, then you can say no with, no problem. And then basically when the matching job gets to this collection, it says, yep, everything, turn that on, rather than going through each individual portfolio. But if you do have a selective package, you'll want to make sure that this is set to yes, so that the matching process looks at each portfolio, make sure that you have access to it. Otherwise, you're going to get false available online flags where it looks like it's available online in Primo V and it's pulled back in that filtered search, but then you actually click into it and like, oh, there's no service from Alma to deliver full text. So, likely you would just want to set that, make sure that that's set correctly. So the use case of handling duplicate ebooks and CDI results, which, as I understand it, is part of the reason why some of these options are available to you. So this suppress the local records using the do not show as full text available in Alma even if active, or do not show full text available in CDI even if active in Alma. That's the option that uses your local bibs and suppresses the CDI records. The reason you might want to do this is because CDI collections contain ebook bib records, and of course you also have your local bib records that are coming from the community zone collection. So if you don't want to have the duplication of potentially two bib records for the same ebook, you can use your local bibs and don't show the CDI results. So you're relying only on your local bib records. The con to this option is that you're not getting the book chapter, book review, the other things that come from the CDI collection. The other way to do it, if it's a link and record type collection, is to suppress your local bibs and only use the CDI option. So you can do it kind of the other way. You're using the book level, book chapter, book review coming from the CDI package, and you're not using your local records. But again, this only works with link and record because you're basically ignoring the service. So the service doesn't come into play for the full text linking, and it doesn't use local bib records. And maybe you have, really great, rich local bibs that you've linked to the community, and you'd rather use those, or you'd like to use those alongside. You don't have to do anything for duplicate handling. You could have the duplication show. I don't know that that's a problem. It gives you more access points. It's a way to do it, but I know that it bothers, or some sites really want to limit duplication in their results. And of course, your local records are never going to dedupe with the CDI record. So there is the possibility to have duplication in some of these scenarios. But here's the thing, there's an enhancement coming for this, the second half of 2021, which is not so far away at this point. So I mentioned this, and maybe you don't want to deal with this at this point and just wait for this enhancement. What the enhancement will do is it allows you to use your local bib records as the bib level discovery, and then you still get to use the book chapter, book review, etc. from CDI without the title level results showing. So second half of 2021, that's really all I know about it. You can find it in the roadmap. It's part of the roadmap. And I'm sure we'll hear more about it in upcoming months. So if you don't want to deal with it now, deal with it later. You can take a look at that enhancement when it comes through. So now that everybody has moved, well, potentially probably has moved from their Primo Central Index to the Central Discovery Index, or maybe you were implemented that way in the first place. There are two different models in terms of what settings you have available to you and how this sort of works on the back end. And that's the fully flexible model versus the easy active model. So the fully flexible model basically tries to model the way that things worked in Primo Central, the Primo Central Index, when you would go to that separate place to make those activations. So when we were working with Primo Central Index, you were able to decide which collections you wanted to search in your expanded search, and you would activate those. And then you would also have to go in and make the corresponding activations whenever you activated something in Alma, so that you would have that content available in Primo Central. You still have the option to decide which collections you want to search in the expanded search. So you can make those activations. You don't have to activate everything on the back end. So everything is not potentially searchable in your expanded search in this model. Um, the difference with CDI is that you don't have to make the corresponding activation if you've activated in Alma in terms of what's actually available in your CDI citations. So if you activate something in Alma, you activate the service, you go through the activation wizard. If you're on the fully flexible model, if you're on the easy active model, everything's active in CDI, nothing else to do. Really, the only refinement for fully flexible is if you want to have refinement over what citations you can search in the expanded search. So when you don't have full text access, you have control over that for fully flexible. If you're on the easy active model, super easy for you. Everything that can be activated for the expanded search is activated, with the exception of things that require a subscription. And then when you make your activation in the easy active model in Alma, you activate your collection, you activate your service, you're all done. The CDI collection was already searchable, and now it's marked as available online, 48 to 72 hours later, nothing else to do. So you don't have that additional refinement, but the benefit is everything is turned on so your users can find all of those citations, and it's just kind of hands off, like nothing, no other choices, nothing else to do, which in a way is kind of nice. Just briefly going through the user roles that you need if you want to, do this kind of stuff, do the activations and take a look at them. Of course, you'll need the CDI inventory operator to get to those settings. You'll want an electronic inventory operator or extended role so that you can actually activate and deactivate your resources. And then a repository manager. You'll likely need to, potentially do some sets and take a look at the metadata editor. So that's what you should have in terms of, making edits and seeing these things and doing these things. So I do want to show I have two different Alma instances up. This one is easy active, this little bar, and this one is fully flexible. So we have the two different models here, and I'll just show, let me take a look at, just going to open a collection here and show you some things. Search for this one first. Whoops. So I got logged out. 1 second. Let's make sure this one's okay. So let me search again for that collection. So again, this is the easy active one. Let's look into the collection here. So I have my CDI tab if I'm an easy active customer. I do have this, we subscribe to only some titles in this collection, which you should see for all of your collections that have a corresponding CDI collection. And then you can make this refinement here, and you can say yes or no. And then also we have this do not show as full text available in CDI, even if active in Alma. So this was going to suppress our CDI content if we wanted to do that. So we can make that choice there and save it. And then again, it would take, potentially 48 to 72 hours for that content to be gone based on the choice that you made after you saved it. And then I do want to show also a link and record type. So we saw that other, like the use only CDI records option. And so we don't see it in that previous collection because that one was using the link resolver. But this one, now we see the CDI only full text activation. And even though this Project Gutenberg online catalog isn't active in Alma, I could still use this option because the link is coming from the CDI record. So I can say, okay, only use those. We're not using any of my Alma bibs. And then this option only would appear for your full text linking type Lincoln record. So if you want to see those, we'll also see how you can search for these particular collections that have Lincoln record if you want to take a look at how they're set and make some changes. But in terms of Easy Active, when you are taking a look at your what you potentially want to activate when you're in the community zones, if you're searching for something that you want to activate, basically, it's really simple. You would just go through the ordering and activation process. You can be assured that if there is a corresponding CDI collection for your, whatever you're activating, it's already available. The citations are already available in your expanded search. So basically, you would just be ordering, potentially activating without ordering, but I mean, best process would be to order and then activate the resource through the activation process, the activation workflow. So nothing else to do for you when you are, here in your Easy Active model. If you are, part of the fully flexible model, let's look at, and this one is also connected to a network zone, but let's take a look at the community zone here. What you'll see if you have the fully flexible model. Okay, let's see something. So we have this available for CDI search activation. And if you hover over it, it's giving you this blurb that this collection can be activated for search independent from its full text activation status. So you can activate this for the expanded search. So when you don't have full text access to it and you use that expand your results search, you can activate this material for that purpose without activating and ordering it and having full text access to it in Alma. So you can activate for search in CDI, and then you still have your other options here in terms of ordering and whatnot. And then let's see. So some of these might not have one, but that's when you would be able to see that activate for search in CDI. So I'm not activating this, like I don't necessarily have a subscription to this, although it looks like this one is localized, but I don't necessarily have to have full text access to it, but I can say I want to search these citations in my expanded search, and then you have that refinement in the fully flexible model. So if you activated it, you don't need to do any additional activation in CDI. CDI is automatically going to activate, if it's not already, activate these citations for search, and then it's going to apply the availability statements for those things that you have availability for based on what portfolios you have active from the service. So let me stop for a second and see. I don't know if there's any questions that we should address, because I think that this is, sometimes I feel like I'm just saying words. Hopefully it's making sense. Milan, I don't know if there's anything that I should address before I move on. Question, how long will it take? Whoops, let me open the chat fully. I can't. Um, So Milan's answered a question from the chat. How long will it take to see the changes if you choose do not show as full text available? So again, all of those changes would take that 48 to 72 hour period. Let's see. There's a question. Why is we subscribe to only some titles in this collection set to no as default? I don't know. That's interesting. It could be useful to have the well, I agree with you that the default should probably be yes, and that if you have an aggregator collection to switch it to no, that's the safer way to do it. And that might be something to put in an ideas exchange or give feedback to Ex Libris also, because I do agree with you that would make more sense. Let's see. For partially open access collections, I have active for search, but not for show as full text available in CDI. Is this a good strategy? For partially open access collections, I have active for search, but not for full show text Show full text available in CDI. Um, that seems, I have to think about that for a second. So you have it active for search, which would allow the citations to show in the expanded search, but not for show full text available in CDI. Yeah, that's fine. Anything that you have activated in your collection should still be showing. It's just you have the option to use your local records or the CDI records in that case. Let's see. Okay, there's just one more question in here. Um, there is a difference if you search with chocolate and health with the and lowercase versus chocolate and health with the Boolean and. Yes, that's true. It does change the way the phrase searching is working. Um, and we've talked about that before. There's a question that it's hard to follow when you are reading them out. Can you put the questions in the chat? We will continue to do that throughout the presentation. We will be answered. Anything is confusing, I always attach the Q&A doc a couple days after the session with the questions and the answers written out if there's something that was confusing. Okay. Moving on at this point to CDI attributes. This is just a small piece, but there are attributes that you can search on, which is useful. And then we've seen this before, but just to reiterate where you can find the attributes for any particular CDI collection. So let me go back to my institution zone here. Let's just search. I'll first show you the attributes in the collection and then show where you can use the attributes to refine a search. So if you're looking in your electronic collection editor, you have your CDI tab here. And when we're talking about CDI attributes, I'm talking about the things that appear here on the bottom. So you have your collection ID, your DB ID, you can see what that is. And you can also use this in searching in Alma. If you want to search on this particular CDI collection DB ID, you can take it from here. Again, here's the number of records that are contained in the CDI collection. So this one actually, this is interesting. This one is updated monthly. Many of them are updated weekly. So this is also, you know, if you're getting a digest maybe from your publisher and they're saying we have these new collections and you know, this new portfolio or whatever. If the CDI update frequency is monthly, that means that that vendor is giving Ex Libris those citations every month. So it may take some time for whatever you're seeing what's new or what's in the actual full text database to make it into CDI. It's going to take probably that month, then plus that processing period to make the updates. So it can be useful to take a look at this, especially if you're trying to find out why new content isn't necessarily displaying in CDI. Your full text linking, this is coming from the link resolver. Again, this is important to know if you're using that option where you're only using CDI link and record, and also, you know, to understand, to try and troubleshoot any problems that you might be having or that your patrons might be having with getting to full text, knowing is this using the Alma link resolver or are we using the link in the record? Again, if you're using newspaper search, you can see if this is contained in the newspaper index or not. So this does not have provider coverage. So that means that the entity that's provided this collection to the community zone is not providing the corresponding article and, you know, CDI level collection. So that the coverage is coming from other other providers, other aggregators. The overlap of portfolios and articles, we're getting the CDI collection from other providers that we're pulling in and sort of cobbling together then this collection. If it's provider coverage, that means that the provider of this collection is also providing the CDI citations. Resource types, you can see what resource types you have in here. And then this is a subscription database using a link resolver, and then the CDI type is full text collection. You can also see selected full text, and you can also see abstracting and indexing databases, in which case often the full text rights would be restricted for search for our subscription. People who subscribe to that content only would be able to search that content. And you can also search on some of these in your electronic collection search. You can refine your search using CDI. So you can search on the DBID full text linking and the full text rights. You can find out which collections have which newspaper option, CDI only full text activation if you've used that, your search rights, and the suppress full text. So you can refine by these additional pieces in the electronic collection, which is useful also because previously with Primo Central was like completely separated from Alma. So this is giving you some insight into CDI, how it interacts with your Alma collection. So you can use those as refinements in your advanced search here. And then finally, we'll go through just some pretty basic troubleshooting scenarios, why you might, see these issues pop up. So maybe you have a specific article title and you can't find it in your CDI search and you expect to find it. Reasons for that might be, first thing you might want to do is expand your search results to see if you have the citation and it says no online access. It could be the case that the 48 to 72-hour process hasn't caught up and the availability flag hasn't been updated. So it might be the case that you truly have access to this article. I feel like this sometimes comes up when you have like professors or something who have asked you to buy or to purchase a particular collection because they want to use some resource within it, and then you activate it and then they go look for it and they can't find this article that they're looking for. If you have already bought it and you've already activated it and the service is active, you can still use this basically. So if you click into this using Cognitive Strategies article and you've activated it and you have access to this particular portfolio and article, once you click into it, that's the point when Primo V is making an API call to Alma saying like, let's double check, do we have access to this or not? And then at that point, if you have access, you'll see the no online access flip to online access, and you'll see your link resolver, the full text option appear in this article. So that's in the case where you have activated it, but you're waiting in that period for the availability flag to be flipped. When you're doing a brief search in an CDI scope, when you're doing a search in a CDI scope, the brief results that are returned, they're using that availability file based on the matching because that's much faster than, making the API call for each result that's coming back. But once you click into this, it's going to actually check to see if you have access. And if you do already have access, then you should be good. It's just not appearing in the filtered search yet. So you can try that. It also might be the case that you haven't activated it. Maybe it's a selective package and you need to go find that portfolio, and maybe you need to adjust the coverage dates, the coverage statement, and actually make that activation so that you're able to get the full text delivery, and also within that processing period, then you'll have your availability flag flipped. Maybe you search in the expanded search for a specific article. In the expanded search, you've clicked your expand my results and we don't find the article here either. So this likely, it depends on the model that you have. If you have easy active model, that likely means that we just don't have this citation in CDI at all. Maybe it's the thing where, the provider gives us the citations every month, and this is a new one, and we don't have it in CDI yet because we haven't been provided it. It could also be the case that maybe you're searching for an article and a citation for a vendor that doesn't work with us. It doesn't provide us with CDI citations, and they're the only one that have this particular article, in which case there's just no access. We don't have that citation included at all, so you're not going to find it. Another thing might be you have, see, Another thing might be that you have you've activated it in Alma and it's a restricted for search collection, and the 48 to 72 hours hasn't passed yet. So then you wouldn't see the citations appear at all because they won't even appear in your expand my results until that processing period has completed. So that might be some reasons. If you're a fully flexible customer and you're making, choices about what collections you search in your expanded search, it might also be the case that you haven't activated this one for search, and that's why you can't find the citation. Um, so if it's active in CDI and it's active in Alma, why can't I see it yet in my discovery system? This is also talking about the 48 to 72 hour waiting period. And this one also, you can see the search rights in CDI are subscription. So again, it's going to have to wait for that processing in order to see the citations, just by, the limitations that the provider has put on this particular collection or package that you've activated. And this could be useful, this easy active collections list could be useful also if you use fully flexible, but this easy active collections list that you can find in the PowerPoint slide or in the documentation shows the collections that are not available for search by default. So if you want to see what can't I search right now, if I'm easy active, I can't even find it in the expanded search, you can take a look at this collection that gets updated. And of course, as we see, not all of them, but most of them are abstracting and indexing type databases. The next scenario, this relates to authentication. So perhaps you click on the link in full text and then it's saying you need to log in or pay for the article. You're getting to like a paywall piece. In that case, it's likely that you need to potentially add proxy information here. It just needs to be proxied and go through your proxy server. And so you can fill in that information if that's missing. Another thing is if the proxy is correct, you can make sure that you have your linking parameters set in the service. So going into the service, editing it, we know that some of our collections have special linking parameters that build the URL. Gale, EBSCO, ProQuest require linking parser parameters. You can go through the wizard without selecting them if you're activating a resource. So maybe the activator meant to go back and upload them or check on them and put them in and they just haven't. In that case, you would need to update the linking parser parameters to make that connection work. And I guess that's all. Okay, so that's all of the troubleshooting things. I did want to just add one more thing. I think sometimes another thing that happens is you'll potentially run into collections that have a different linking level, which you can also find on this electronic collection editor page. If the linking level that you see is like journal, even if you find the article citation for that collection in CDI, if the linking through the full text, through the Alma link resolver is linking level journal, that means that there's not enough information in the Alma collection to bring you to the article level. It's only ever going to bring you to the journal level. So sometimes there's questions about, I click into this article and it's not bringing me to the article, it's bringing me to the journal. Well, does your electronic collection have the linking level of journal or article? If it does have linking level article, that's a problem with the metadata either on the community zone collection side or on the CDI collection side. And in that case, you should be making a case, and those teams can make adjustments and take a look at what's going on there, why the linking level isn't bringing you specifically to the article. So as always, you can always engage premium services if you want one-on-one help with anything, Primo or Alma. And then there is some good documentation. And I know that there are some recent videos also, especially if you're part of a consortia. The product manager goes through activations for fully flexible and easy active, I think, for consortia as well. Paying particular attention to the complexities of that. So if that's your situation, you can take a look at those videos. And that's it. And I can stop sharing and see if there's any questions I should address. Not so much time today, but let's see. chat. Let's see. Looks like Milan has answered about match and merge. Let's see. As a question, can you talk about collections that are database type but link resolver rather than link and record? There are no portfolios or a service. These seem to be a problem in Primo. I have open tickets. I would agree. I think that in most scenarios, you would see database type records using link and record. Um, right, because there is no service. So yeah, I think that that would be an issue, and I would report that to support, and then they can ferry that off to the CDI team if necessary. There's a question, is it okay to delete a collection without turning it off in the CDI tab? Will CDI information for the portfolios in the collection be removed? Yes, if you don't have a service activated, that will tell Primo over the next indexing period that you don't have online access to it. Um, I don't actually know in the fully flexible model if you remove the collection if you've activated it for search, so for the expanded search, and you didn't want that anymore. I don't know if that activation sticks or not. I would need to test that. There's a question, if we click activate for search only for a collection we don't have a subscription for, will the collection appear in the institution zone? No. That would only happen if you activated it, localized it, and activated it for Alma. Question, does editing a setting in the e-collection restart the 24 to 72 hour waiting period? It depends. If you're editing CDI specific parameters, then yes. I mean, it doesn't restart it. The process is happening all the time. But if you made some changes to the CDI tab, I would expect it to take 48 to 72 hours before you would see that change reflected in your CDI results. If you've made some change in Alma, you would likely see that immediately. And it looks like Milan answered the last question. I don't see anything else. And again, I'll compile these questions in the doc if it's easier for you to read them. And next week, we'll talk about loading external resources. Hopefully this was useful, and see you guys next week.